Hey boys and girls, this is Mr. Rush with your quick 9.3 lesson time of conflict. During the next 15 years from 1800 to 1815, Jefferson and James Madison, both Democratic Republicans, would be faced with several conflicts. We're going to go through those with you today. They involve Native Americans, the British, the French, and economics. Let's begin. Feel free, by the way, to pause the video and write down any of the notes, such as this little note right here. As needed, because this is your notes for the page and the pictures might not do it for you. Here we go. 1785, the Empress of the Sea, an American merchant ship, made its way back from China carrying tea and silk. These made Americans in that merchant group extremely wealthy. It was the equivalent of $1 million or more shipment of goods. Other merchants in America picked up on this, and soon by 1800, 1,000 American merchant ships were trading Africa, Asia, and the other Americas. It was very good for the U.S. economy. If we very quickly take a look at our chart here, we can see that the U.S. economy about 1800 picked up greatly. And this was good for our economy in paying down the national debt. Back to the top. So at the same time, the British and French were at war with one another. America remained neutral, just like Washington and Adams pursued neutrality so that nobody dies and America's economy is kind of left alone and can do its own thing. So the British and the French were hiring American ships, and these 1,000 ships that were merchants going back and forth for Britain and France were reaping the benefits. But Britain and France did not like this. And in fact, they started taking it out on America a little bit. There were problems with pirates. You might want to add this little phrase right here. At the same time, all this was going on, and the pirates had military advantages when it came to sailing and sea warfare. They were the best of the best. I mean, they made their money by stealing and being thieves and just outdoing the other navies. So they were very successful, and America had their share of problems with the pirates as well. So America actually today has a policy not to negotiate with terrorists. But back then, Thomas Jefferson actually paid tens of thousands of dollars to the corsairs or the pirates of North Africa to avoid being attacked. So we were paying terrorists back in the early United States history, something to keep in mind because we do not negotiate with terrorists today. In any case, it was about 1801 when the Dey, D-E-Y, of Tripoli said that, hey, I want more money. America was already tired of paying it, so they said no. So the Dey ordered that the U.S. flag be chopped down. This is an act of war. So the United States responds, and they send up a naval blockade, much like the British did during the colonial attacks. So they would blockade Tripoli. I know this isn't North Africa, but they would send all their ships there to block off trade in and out of Tripoli. It didn't work. The pirates were too darn strong. They were too very good at naval warfare, and they were just better seamen in general. So they stole the U.S. boat, the Philadelphia. They towed it to their harbor, and they were going to outfit it for pirate use. Only Stephen Decatur, who would be the first American to fight or act against terrorism, which is this man right here, he would go in, burn the Philadelphia down, and successfully escape and be later made an admiral. All right, so that was your first act against terrorism. Okay, shortly after, it was about 1805, the United States negotiated a deal with the corsairs and the pirates to stop all raids and seizing of ships for a simple $60,000 for American prisoners. And that would be the end of the pirates, but it was an issue. Thomas Jefferson would win re-election in 1804 pretty easily as a Democratic Republican. He kept his policy of being calm and staying neutral. He believed in what we would call neutral rights. I would definitely write this in. Neutral rights is sailing the seas and trading without taking sides. Like I said earlier, this drove the British and the French bonkers. They really wanted the Americans' help. America was a very strong country at the time. So as that was happening, you can imagine that impressment was still going on in America. Remember, this is where the British soldiers steal American soldiers off their ships while they're searching and seizing the boats for goods that would be traded towards the French or the British. So they did that, and an event happened in 1807 called the Chesapeake, which is the American ship, versus the Leopard, the British ship. And what happened was that the British in the Virginia side of the Chesapeake Bay in the U.S., so down in this area, they requested, or not really requested, demanded that they could go on the American ship, the Chesapeake, and check for illegal goods and for illegal sailors. And in doing so, the captain of the American boat said, "No way, you can't do this." The British fired, boom, boom, onto the American ship, killing 3 and wounding 18 others. This had a detrimental effect on what America would do going forward. In response to that Chesapeake and Leopard attack, the United States economy would crumble in the Embargo Act of 1807. So you can see that about 1807, which is right here at the peak here, we issued the Embargo Act, which stopped all imports and exports with any country, including Africa, including the Americas. We just dealt with ourselves. America's suffered greatly from this, and we ended up seeing that we really do rely on other countries. Congress felt this right away. They were pressured by the Americans, so they issued a new act. It's called the Non-Intercourse Act, in the hopes of changing this around. So we do see a little bit of a bump up right here, and that was partly because of the Non-Intercourse Act, but it repealed the E-Act, the Embargo Act, and opened up trade with all countries except Britain and France. So we could trade with America, the other Americas, and Africa, but it just also didn't work. I'm going to make this disappear now. All right. So shortly after, America would kind of try and work with Congress. James Madison would be new president about 1808, and he was a Democratic Republican. So Congress had the challenge of trying to fix this economy, get this shooting up again, and helping Americans in general with commerce. But there was a problem. Congress actually needed to kind of do something. So they proposed an idea. Let's open up trade with either Britain or France. And they chose France. So you might want to write down what Napoleon did on a margin. The U.S. makes a deal with Napoleon, and Napoleon actually tricks the United States. So while this deal is made to trade with France, Napoleon is still seizing American ships. So an amount of war fever starts to escalate in America. And people are asking themselves, should we go to war with Great Britain or should we go to war with France? So impressment adding to our level of need to go to war. We've got France tricking us, adding to the need to go to war. So America is at this point where we're going to go to war or we're going to continue with these problems. Onward. Don't forget about the conflicts and struggles out west. In the Treaty of Greenville, 1803, or 1800-ish, we actually earned the right to be in Ohio. But with that treaty, we said that we would not push further west. As you know, us greedy Americans, we continue to push out west onto native lands. And a guy named Tecumseh, which you see in this picture, and his brother, the Prophet, are really given no choice. They have to fight back or risk losing everything. So what they do is they form a confederation. And in this confederation is just a big, large group of Native Americans put together to be very, very strong and to fight back and push back against the Americans moving out west on their lands. Okay? I'm going to stop here. That's part 1 of the video. We'll go with part 2 here in a minute.